Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Richard. I am the president of the Atlantic International Passport Rotary Club. And tonight we have the great pleasure to welcome Mike McKee and his son, Rob. Mike McKee was born in Bouctouche, New Brunswick on March 22nd, 1940. He is a graduate of St. Thomas University, Holy Heart Seminary in Halifax, and UNB. He has a long history as a priest with the Archdiocese of Moncton, the government of New Brunswick, and as a provincial court judge. Mike is also a long-standing volunteer in our community, notably in minor sports. We are also honored to mention that he is a charter member of the Rotary Club of Moncton West and Riverview. Greetings, gentlemen.
Good evening. Hello.
Hey, Paul.
How are you guys doing?
Very well. Very well.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Paul, for having us.
No, thank you guys for coming in to our virtual meet. Mike, as you know, we're here to talk about your path through polio. So I'm going to ask. I have a few questions, but we're going to discuss, and it's going to be more of a discussion than drilling you. So Mike, do you remember how old you were when you first became aware of the polio virus?
Yes, I was afflicted with polio back in when I was 22 months old. It was actually in the month of January, which is unusual because usually it's warmer months. And this was back in 1942. And at the time, I was living in Bouctouche, and fortunately for me, my mother and father were both originally from Bouctouche. Mom was an Acadian by the name of Michaud, who had gone to Montreal for a nursing degree, and she stayed there to practice at Hôpital Saint-Justin. And when I was struck with polio, she said, and reminded me later on, she thought that if it wasn't the month of January, she would have thought for sure it was infantile paralysis that they used to call it at the time, which is a fancy medical term for polio. And I was actually afflicted from the neck down to my feet. They could sense that the muscles were being affected, and and so she said she wasn't going to take a chance, and she put me in a tub of water, a bathtub, and with coarse salt, and she put me in there, and she said they watched the paralysis leaving me from the neck down, and I ended up with my left leg only paralyzed, but badly paralyzed. And that was the beginning for me. It also meant that the first, from age 2 to 5, I would spend quite a bit of time at the polio clinic in Fredericton. They had a small polio clinic there, and I was there for treatment and whatnot. But at the time, very few people, the medical field did know a lot about polio in those days. And in any case, I ended up with a doctor in Moncton, and through my parents, and he thought for sure this was polio.
It's something else. Please go ahead, Rob.
No, and just some things that I've heard you say before. Just ironically, that you were the youngest of all of your brothers and sisters to walk or take your first steps. Is that right? And then
that's correct. I was told that. Yeah, I walked a lot, quite a bit earlier than my at the time my older brother and my 2 older sisters, and I had learned to walk earlier. You know how parents sometimes always measure those things and can tell you exactly the number of weeks that you were beyond your 9th birthday or whenever you started walking. And yes, that's a fact, actually, Rob. Yeah, it is. It is.
I just always remembered that, having to deal with, a paralyzed left leg. That's,
Yeah.
you always kind of joke that you were the youngest to walk of all of your brothers and sisters.
I know.
Yeah.
And I ended up having to wear a brace. And in those days there, you didn't have the modern technologies of today. So the brace was really a heavy thing that went from my boot right up to my hip. And it was quite heavy, really. It was quite heavy, and it was awkward, and however, you learn to live with it. The other thing that used to bother me a little bit in those days there, I always had to have boots. And when some of these people started getting older and wearing shoes and fancy sneakers, it wasn't for me, because the bottom of my brace had to fit into my sole on the boot there. And in any case, that's just one of the small items, if you wish, but still a factor that some of the things that I remember about that. And, spending the amount of time that I did at the polio clinic in Fredericton. And then when I was 9 years of age, my parents had found a so-called expert in the field, Dr. Sanson, at the hospital in Côte-des-Villes, a suburb of Montreal. And I went there as a 9-year-old, and I had major surgery, actually. One for a dropped foot that didn't work nearly as well as they expected. The other thing they did at that time is that they also operated my good leg at the knee section, and they put like clamps on either side of the knee, and it was to prevent my good leg from growing at its normal pace, because the one that was paralyzed was growing a lot slower than the normal leg. And they left those pins in there for 3 years, from age 9 to age 12. So I would probably be taller as an individual if I hadn't lost those 3 years. However, it was well worth it because it also provided an opportunity for, and it's funny how things turn out, because there was also a very close friend of my mother who lived in Montreal, and in Côte-des-Villes there in those days, there in what was it? I was there in 1949. Traveling to Montreal wasn't an occurrence that would happen too often for parents, especially with a house full of kids. And in any case, to make a long story short, there was a dear friend of my mother's in nursing who lived in Montreal, Bert Fortin, and she all the time that I was there, full 3 months, she never missed on Tuesday night and Thursday night to visit me at the hospital all the time, and she'd help me to write little notes home. I found one the other day, and it's so typical of the French Quebecer vocabulary and whatnot. It was a joke when I read it, really, because I could tell it wasn't me. So in any case, all of that to highlight the fact that I was privileged in getting those kinds of surgeries available. And that was only part of it, mind you, because then a little later on, I went for some more surgery, not in Montreal this time. It was in Fredericton by a New Brunswicker, Dr. Torrey. And he took the tendons from the back of my paralyzed leg, and those tendons were still pretty strong, and he transferred them to the front. And it really did improve my walking. It did improve my walking. And by that time, the technology was getting better to have braces and that. Although I've had braces, I still wear, I have a brace on right now. I wear it, all the time except to sleep. And it holds my ankle up somewhat. And I find that very helpful. Yeah. And
please
course,
continue.
let me finish, Paul, if I may, because before I miss out on this one, is that when I had that New Brunswick surgery in Fredericton at the polio clinic, And the transfer of my tendons, because the back ones were very strong and the front ones were so paralyzed and weak that I always had to walk with leaning over and putting my hand on my thigh there to hold the knee from snapping. And in any case, that year, it was quite a long period there. I had been in surgery quite some time, and then rehab to walk with it and whatnot. And that was grade 10, and I never went to school that year at all. I took my grade 10 by what they used to call the New Brunswick School of Correspondence, which was run by the Department of Education. And I never met the professors, or we didn't have the facility of Zoom or whatever. And we did everything through hard mail. But I did work and suffice the work that it was needed to pass my grade 10. And it was quite fortunate for me, really.
I know you've always said that, you had to work your tail off, because you didn't want to fall behind a grade. You wanted to stay with, your friends and your classmates, and you had to put in extra work just to catch up and stay on.
Yeah, for sure. And I suppose in those days there, it was, like most people at that level of grading, they think, oh, you can't miss a grade, But I'll tell you, once you get my age, you look back, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
That's nice. Yeah. So correspondence in those days, I just learned something already tonight. I didn't know we had that in New Brunswick at that point.
Yeah, we did. And it was a savior, really. But even like before that, in grade 3, I had my first surgery in Montreal. And I remember the teacher, Rosalie Modag, in grade 3, and she would come in those days. I mean, she would come right into to the house. I remember seeing her there in my bedroom, trying to teach me some work. And she would come every Tuesday night there with a couple of hours of work and whatnot for me to try to do and not lose my grade 3. So, it was an experience, there's no question, but like many other things, people were good. One of the things that is really a highlight for me is the way that my parents, my mother and father, were really supportive and trying to put it before me that you're going to be like everybody else. You're going to play a little sport, and not everybody's is a Rocket Richard here, and that kind of stuff. And I played my years of sports there until I got to the end of my high school. Then when I went to university, and I really wanted to play football, and in any case, that didn't happen because the coach was a little nervous, and I had to get permission from the parents and everything else because of my polio. But he did make an offer to me that I could be his team manager for football and hockey. And that was for my second, third, and fourth year at university. So it was a nice opportunity for me to be part of the sports community, which seemed to be important there at that age and everything else. So it was good. It was good, really. So I appreciated very much my parents making me believe that si tu veux, tu peux. If you really want to, you can do it, And they provided the help that I needed to play hockey and whatnot, but got to a point there it was pretty difficult. And then, talking about communities, I mean, the Bouctouche community was very acceptable of my situation and provided me with every opportunity that I wanted, really, and played ball and hockey with them. Those were the big sports in those days, and enjoyed it very much, and everybody was very supportive. And without wanting to brag a little bit there, I wasn't the worst one around either, especially in baseball. We had a lot of fun, and it was good. It was good, but I always needed to have a little extra. Like even in baseball, I had to have a runner from home plate. I couldn't even reach first base on my own. but you know, defensively I could play and hold my own for sure. But all of that to highlight, I think, the teaching that you get from parents who encourage you to work and you know, to push ahead, and you know, all of that thing, in spite of paralyzing infectious disease that you've been afflicted with, you know, and the community being accepted of that, and it continued later on. I mean, you know, minor sports in Moncton, and football and hockey especially, and in baseball as well. You know, I was able to coach and enjoy it very much. In fact, when we did have a workout or a practice, I would sooner not have parents who were anxious to come on the ice to help me out and whatnot, you know, because I didn't skate anymore. I would find a way to tell them, look, no, don't bother, because really, to be quite honest about it, they were more in the way than anything, you know. It's I heard when I blew the whistle, they knew I meant business, and they had a certain pride to be on my team, and you can be sure they were listening, you know. And I wasn't that tough with them, but we had a lot of fun. But that was, you know, community providing me with those opportunities, and for which I'm very thankful, because you know, there are times that we're tough enough there, you know, with the handicap, and you know, it's we're more used to it a little bit today, and you get accustomed a little bit to it, but it's not always easy either, you know. Parking and getting around, and you know, even on a university campus, having to walk there from the residence to the other place to pick up the towels, and then go up the hill to the arena, and you know, you think back about those things, but you do what you need to do, I guess. And but sometimes it's easy enough at my age now to say it that way, but at the time there, it wasn't always easy, I can assure you.
I'm sure. I wish you would have been my coach.
Well, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, even though it might have been about 7 o'clock in the morning at the old stadium there on St. George Street. It wasn't too warm some of those mornings, I'll tell you that. Oh, but it was always a lot of fun, really. I enjoyed it immensely, and hopefully the kids did as well, because I meet them today as adults, and they can tell me stories and things that I used to use in the dressing room, and you know, messages that they've carried on, really. And you know, it wasn't joke, it was serious stuff, you know.
Those meetings are special to meet those players that you coached once upon a time. That's special, meeting them again. That's
for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I mean, you've mentioned a few things, and the brace is there forever. It's still there. So what other long-term effects would have been over the years, Mike?
Well, you know, the braces have been improved, and it's now fiberglass, and it's a little easier, and it's up to the knee, not to the hip, and stuff like that. And fiberglass is a lot lighter, of course, than the iron, cast iron, the FAF. So, you know, all of that makes a difference for sure. And, you know, you have disability parking and whatnot. But in the last few years, it's been a little tougher, although I've always made the effort to exercise and try to stay fit as much as I could, and those kinds of things. Even to this day, I walk 3 and 4 times a week, but I do it now with a walker that I use for walking when it's a longer distance, or a cane that seems to be coming in handier almost every day. But you know, I'm not 21 or 31 anymore, and it's part of the scenario, because on that very point, I remember at church one day bumping into a doctor who was a specialist in the area, and I said, what's all this talk, I said, about post-polio syndrome? He said, Mike, I'll give you a little secret. He said, a lot of that has to do with getting older. You know, I was saying how it was getting tougher and weaker perhaps, and you know, but you know, that's one of the things though that needs to be mentioned as well, is that with the Salk vaccine that really came about there in the early 50s, you know, the new doctors with the Salk vaccine and the people, the new babies were all protected because it would strike mostly those under 5 years of age. And, you know, they could, those people they would not be, if they were immunized, they wouldn't be catching that polio. So the doctors and the medical schools didn't have that on their agenda anymore. So the newer doctors, after graduated there after the Salk vaccine in the early 50s, probably didn't know very much about polio. So you grew up without having the benefit of these specialists. And, you know, although it is what it is, because as you got older, it were other parts of you that you know, because I had walked so much favoring one side rather than the other, that in 2014, I had to have my last piece of surgery, and it was my back, because my spine was bending with time after all those years favoring one side, and the vertebrae were starting to touch the nerves there in the bottom of my spine, and it was very, very hurtful. And I had surgery, and the doctor fused, that was in 2014, yeah, he had to fuse 5 of my vertebrae, and it was quite a major piece of surgery. And 2014 is not too long ago, but it did the trick. It tightened my back up a little bit, but it's not painful. So knock on wood on that one. Yeah.
Thank God they did that. So and I was wondering where else, what other pains that could have came with, like you said, you'd be favoring one side most of the time or all of the time. So
yeah. Well, I guess the other aspects of it would be, you know, trying to keep a good, healthy outlook on life, and you know, to have a positive outlook as much as you can on the things that you had to face, or the limitations that you might be expected to meet because of your condition. That became, you know, important to me, to make sure that I kept a good frame of mind. And I think, having said that, my parents were ahead of their time, really, when it comes to using psychology and whatnot. And the other aspect of that, the community was also very receptive, giving me all kinds of opportunities to participate like everybody else. And that doesn't stop there either, because then a few years later, when I got married and had a couple of children, those people too were treasures, really, to support me and make my life so worthwhile. And you know, they were sources of enrichment for me, and they still are, and they're very considerate and cognizant of the fact that, you know, my limitations as I get older are my limitations are getting a little greater as well in terms of physical mobility. So I'm very grateful, really, for all of them, and my family in particular. They've been super, 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 really.
I'm sure. So plus you have 4 grandchildren from your daughter Sheila and your son Rob that we have with us.
Yes, but it's so darn hard during the pandemic, really. It's you know, you just want to hug them, and you can't, you know, and
hug them and never let them go.
I know. No, but it's that too is part of the enrichment, really. It's been a tremendous experience, having those grandchildren around, and you know, they always have a knack to find a lot of loving from the grandparents.
That's
yeah.
great. So I'm not surprised that you started walking so early, because you had so much to do. I mean, I went through your resume quickly, and I picked up in your career, starting as a parish priest, going into prison chaplain. You went to the New Brunswick, you were in New Brunswick MLA for Moncton North, you were a lawyer, you were a minister of labor and multiculturalism, you were deputy speaker, you were provincial court judge, and New Brunswick Mental Health Commission chairperson. That's a lot going on, but you had to start working early to get working on those.
Yeah, yes, you're right. You're right. But all of them, it's strange that you bring that up. All of them were fantastic life experiences, really. And it's hard to tell really what I enjoyed more than anything else. I enjoyed all of them, really. Enjoyed all of them. I guess it's dealing with people, and you know, at the end of the day, people that and your family and friends are, you know, pretty important in life.
For sure. And family's number one. I know that for you.
Oh, for sure.
And with that, I'm going to go to your son Rob, that's with us, he is a New Brunswick MLA for Moncton Centre and financial critic for the opposition. So the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Rob, I'd like to know, what kind of impact did you feel polio had on your life, you and your family?
Yeah, well, you know, as I've been reflecting on it, you know, lately, you know, I've always said to myself and, you know, to my parents as well, that, you know, selfishly, I wouldn't want to have had my father any different, you know, than what he is. So I feel that polio played a part in shaping his life and who he is, and, you know, the type of father he's been, and you know, the family that he's raised. I feel that, you know, any other way, you know, we might not be here the way we are now. So I feel that it definitely has had a big impact on our lives. And, you know, the saying that he said earlier, si tu veux, tu peux, or, you know, if you want, you can. I've heard that 1,000 times growing up as well. And so, yeah, I feel that, you know, just he's instilled that value in us to make the most out of life with, you know, the cards that you're dealt, you know, to never give up. And, you know, you can do whatever you set your mind to. And, you know, that's the type of attitude and mentality that he's brought. And, you know, left, you know, with some big shoes to fill. I'm trying to carve my own path, but certainly, you know, growing up with a family that's been valued public service, and I'm happy to be doing my part as well now with the values that he and my mom, him, have instilled in me.
That's very nice. That's and I'll say, like you, Rob, I wouldn't want him any other way. This is the man we know and love, and this is what made him who he is. How, if I could ask how your children, I don't know, I don't want to say how they look at him, or how they, if that affects anything. I'm sure it doesn't. They love him.
Yeah.
More and more.
No, like, I mean, growing up, we never viewed him as having a disability. You know, as me being a kid, and, you know, my kids or my nephew and niece, you know, I don't think they see anything or any difference. And I think it goes back to the values that, you know, my grandparent, his parents, have had with him growing up, you know, inclusive and all that. And I think, you know, we've all done, you know, different things with sports, and, you know, it's never been an issue. I know, going way back, you know, before he had a family, he was always doing things with his brother Peter, and they you know, they played tennis, they water skied, and Peter, I don't think went easy on him at all. You know, they played tennis until their heart's content there. I think my dad used to take the first set from him, but then he would wear down in the second and third set, I think, there, and then Pete might prevail. But, you know, they always played together. Nobody was going easy on anyone, and my dad never went easy on me growing up either, if it was tennis or ping pong or anything. And so, you know, same thing with water skiing. You know, my uncle was into water skiing, and he wanted to make sure that, you know, that dad had something to do too. They tried skis. They, you know, they found different different apparatuses. They ended up finding a NACWA board that my dad did, you know, into his late 70s. He still was doing it. So, you know, he always found a way, and that's, you know, the same with us. Yeah, and playing with the grandkids, it's the same thing. He you know, no, he does what he can, but nobody questions his abilities or whatnot. You know, but you know, in growing up, you know, the mobility aspect, it's always been something that we've had to contend with. You know, like you talked about it, parking and different things, or if we're going to Wildcats games, you know, now with Ticketmaster, you can kind of find your seats on the map, and you always try to find one close to the door or close to the aisle. And if we're going on family trips, we always used to try to, you know, find a excursion that, you know, you could rent bikes or, you know, do different things to get around. And, you know, it was always top of mind to make sure we could do something that he could do with his mobility. And, you know, but it was never an issue. We found ways. And, you know, biking through the streets of London, England, where it can be pretty fun. So, you know, we always found a way to do different things. So, yeah.
That's great. You got anything on that, Mike?
Well, yeah, I guess really, you know, people people have never given me the impression that they were even aware that I had a handicap. I don't know if they got so used to me, and, you know, except that now I find with wearing mask, and nobody seems to be able to recognize it. I have an awful tough time to recognize people when they have their mask on, but everybody seems to, that I should know, recognize me, and it's probably because of my limp, but that's an advantage, isn't it? So, you know, people take me for what I am and who I am, and I'm very grateful for that, really, very grateful. It's been huge. And you know, to one of the points that Robbie was making, I guess it's it's like the legend there, Vince Lombardi, with an expression that I've used 1,000 times in court, especially youth court, when he said to his football team, the Packers, he said, it's not if you get knocked down that matters. He said, it's whether you get back up. And, you know, you use that expression in court, especially youth court, but you also live that after a while, you know, yeah, it's the expression that legend had used there, that, you know, it's not whether you get knocked down that matters, whether you get back up. And then that's a sort of approach that I've used in life and with my family and that, but it was so close to me that I would do that without really being that conscious of doing it. You know, it's the way it is. It's the way it is, you know.
Yeah, no, you made it work, and you made it who you are, and that's a lot of hard work and a lot of persevering. I know the community keeping the inclusivity, letting you do what you do. I mean, it's very important.
But, you know, at the same time, it doesn't take away from the fact that I only wish the Rotary Club had been around Bouctouche in 1942.
You should have started it, right?
Huh?
You should have started it.
Yeah. No, but it's just that, you know, they're doing such great work. And the number of people that they had saved from this very serious infectious disease is very remarkable. And the Rotary Club lâche pas, they're still at it very much so, and the numbers are there to prove their success, really, you know, and they're to be commended. And as a polio survivor, I want to make sure that that Rotary International knows how much they've contributed to this very terrible situation.
Yeah, exactly. So on that note, you knowing how Rotary works hard for polio, what would be your thoughts on the fact that in 2021 we're still fighting this disease?
Yeah, I think you have to look at the larger picture as well, that we're down really to to eradication in 2 countries only. So the rest of the world has been the disease has been eradicated and ended. Polio has been ended, and you know, I'm sure that their continued efforts will do something about the 2 remaining countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan, and I'm very hopeful that you know, if the past success is any indication, I'm very hopeful that it will be completely eradicated in no time here.
You ran me right into my follow-up question. I know you understand the work that's being done. You understand the work that has been done and continues. So I don't know if you have any other last words about Rotary, about polio.
Well, it's just that as a survivor, I want them to know that the world is very appreciative, and the survivors and the parents and the families affected by this disease and living with the victims are very, very grateful. We can't say enough about their work and their commitment and their contributions and their donations, and oh, it's amazing, and they should be commended from the bottom of my heart. Really, they do great work. And of course, if in case this is on an ending basis, I really do want to recognize how much my personal family has done to help me to this point, and my present family and my wife and children are so very understanding. Really, it's amazing, and their kids are being raised with the same kind of mentality, and it's amazing. Really, it's amazing. I love it. I love it very much, really. And I have so much to be thankful for to those people with whom I live and the communities with whom I deal with. You know, they've done great work to make my life and the life of many other people who have physical mobility issues better. And a lot of those people and the many friends that we end up in public life acknowledging on occasion, but not often enough, have been great contributors as well to making my life easier, physically and mentally, and that I am very grateful indeed.
Well, Mike, we're extremely thankful that you and Rob were here with us tonight. We really thank you. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts to have given us your side of your story, of your life story, and how, Rob, as well, I appreciate you joining us and giving us the family side of what you and your dad would have gone through, your family and your dad would have gone through. So on behalf of Rotary Atlantic International Passport, and this video is going to be going around, so all Rotaries, thank you both. Thank you very much for speaking with us tonight.
Well, thank you as well, and to you and Rotary, and to Rob. They're really doing a good job, this guy, really.
No, thank you very much, Paul, for having me. I'm glad that I was able to join. I'm pretty proud of the accomplishments that my dad has been able to achieve, but I feel that there's probably a lot more stories out there with polio where it's been devastating for some families that people haven't been as privileged, and so the work that you guys have been doing over the last several years to eradicate polio is really amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So many people working on all sides. Rotary is there for everyone. So thank you again, both of you. Thank you
thank
tonight
you
for
as
joining
well
us.
for this opportunity very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Can't wait to talk again soon.
Okay.
Hello, my dear fellow Rotarians. As we mark World Polio Day 2021, we can look back at this journey with great satisfaction. We have eradicated the wild polio virus from every continent except one. We have succeeded in ending polio in the most populous nations in the world, including my home country of India. We've raised awareness and created a global infrastructure through our partners and have vaccinated the world and left behind public health resources that will be vital for fighting infectious diseases for generations to come. We've noted how close we are. We have talked about entering the last mile, but now it is time to bring this historic project to a dramatic conclusion. With just 2 countries left in the world, we have never been more close to eradicate polio. We have it within our grasp to identify and reach those still at risk of being infected with this terrible virus and protecting their childhood and their lives. This is our moment, our turning point. If we give up now, we could see polio return all across the world. If these past 2 years have taught us anything, it is that viruses will continue to evolve and adapt if we allowed these to fester on their own. We have the power and the ability to bring the number of polio cases to 0. Rotary will enter the history books for this accomplishment, and you will prove forever that through Rotary we serve to change lives. So please donate your money, donate your time, and do not stop sharing this important story with everyone you know. We will end polio forever. We will do it to honor the lives of the polio workers who have given up their lives in the line of duty as polio vaccinators. We will do it for the future of all the children of this world, and we will do it now. Thank you.